This recipe comes from my boyfriend's sister. Her name is Amber, and her uncle Alan makes these for our family get-togethers and other events. They are to die for. They're absolutely divine. They're soft, they're chewy, they're delicious, they're buttery. I mean, if you take the time to make this recipe, your whole family will appreciate you for years to come. So please watch this video and let me know what you think. Enjoy! Hey, so I've been boiling my potatoes for about as long as it takes to fold a load of towels. They're not done. They still have more time. Once I see that the blades are moving pretty well in here, I'm going to say, that's probably done. That's probably mashed up. And you can see how smooth that looks. So, we're going to see if we have a cup. Nice and smooth texture. I'm going to put it in our measuring cup. Almost like butter. Now that we have our mashed potatoes, we have our hot potato water, and all of our other ingredients are laid out, we're going to start mixing everything up. So we don't have to preheat our oven yet because this whole mixture is going to sit for an hour while it rises. Got my dough hook attachment on my KitchenAid mixer, which is great because it really saves you a lot of time. If you had to knead everything by hand when you're trying to make doughs or breads of any kind, I mean, it's a workout, like trying to do that for 10 minutes. I've done it before. Once you get one of these in your life, you have never a reason to not make bread. So what we're going to end up doing, put our dry ingredients in. This recipe calls for, there is 4 cups of flour. Now the next thing we're going to need is our salt. You always want salt because you don't want it to be bland. Get this fresh new packet of salt open. I'm like afraid it's going to hurt my nail. Open your mother! Okay, so 1.5 teaspoons of salt. We're going to go 1. Make sure we don't get too much. And 1/2. So we'll do 1/2. Okay, the salt's in there. And we're going to want some sugar, so we're going to do 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar. This is a 1/4 cup measuring cup, so 1/4 plus 1/4 is 1/2. So there's 1. And 2, that makes 1/2 cup of sugar. And then it says in the recipe to use 1 package of active dry yeast. This is the kind that you can mix in with the dry ingredients and you don't have to activate it in the warm water. You just add the hot water to your mixture after all the dry ingredients are mixed up. So 1 package though is about 2 1/4 teaspoon. That's what the container says anyway. We're just gonna have to trust it. So we're gonna put 1. And here's 2, and then 1/4. Anytime you're working with yeast, you're going to have to assume that you're going to use some kind of warm liquid and that you're going to have to knead your mixture at some point for a long period of time. So right now I've got the dry ingredients in. I'm going to give those a quick stir. Get those all mixed up. Get those things mixed up. doesn't have to be perfect. Ooh, flour makes me think of snow. I cannot wait till Christmas. Oh, and by the way, these potato rolls would be divine in the Christmas time. Let me tell you right now. Oh, quick side note. I am drinking Prosecco from Costco. So fancy. It's pretty good. It's not very sweet. It's very dry and bubbly. And I'm drinking it in this awesome Pac-Man cup, which says game over. It's Saturday. Don't judge. Okay. So we have our yeast, we have our flour, we have our sugar, we have our salt. All of that is mixed up. So this is the time when you want to add in your wet ingredients. And the wet ingredients we have is shortening. Now shortening, I don't know if I like you very much. This is terrible for your health. I normally wouldn't use this, but I don't want to mess up the recipe, and since it is a family recipe, I'm going to stick with it. And the reason why I don't like it is because it's pretty much like oil made in a laboratory. It's not natural. The molecule strands are rigid, so once you put this stuff in your body with a trans fat, you can't burn this stuff off. So usually this isn't something that I'd usually use, but it's going to taste delicious. So we're going to have a half cup. So again, this is a 4th cup measuring cup. We're going to use 2 of these. But hey, my mom always cooked with Crisco shortening, and I used to, don't tell anybody, but I used to eat it by the spoonfuls with sugar on top. That's disgusting, I know. I'm just like, I am a horrible human. But those are the things that you do. But, you know, we used to cook with this all the time growing up. We used to make cookies with it, and Crisco does, I'm sorry to say, make the best cookies, especially if you get the butter flavor kind. So I can't hate on it too much. So we got our 1/4 cup. Oh, I'm getting all oily. Getting frisky. And then here's another one. Put it in there. Put it in the bowl. So, there's that. I'm just going to start mixing this. It's going to be a little loud. It's funny because I didn't get a whole lot of instructions on what to do when and how to do it, so I'm kind of going off of my prior knowledge of baking. So if I was making a biscuit, I would probably cut this shortening into the dough with like a fork. I have this wooden spork, I guess. It's got like tongs on it, so I'll just use the wooden spork and the combination of that and the dough hook, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Like I always say, it's not an exact science. I wouldn't like it if it was. It's more of an art form. And when you're doing art, you can express yourself in whichever way you choose. Okay? And by the way, I am a singer too. Oh my God, this is beautiful though. So beautiful. Okay, so we got that. Make sure to wipe the oil off your thumb. And we're going to mix it more. Here's where we're going to add our mashed potatoes. Those creamy, delicious, num 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 mashed potatoes. It's like my kids in preschool, because for those of you who don't know, I'm a Wadley Room preschool teacher by day, extraordinary cook by night. And my Wadlers are like 1 year old. They're 1 year old to like 18 months, almost 2 years old. And some of the kids, every time they eat something yummy, they go num 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 num. Mix that in. The mixture is very dry still. Very dry mixture. So you know when you're making like a biscuit, you're gonna want to like cut the butter in until it has like pea-size particles. That's kind of what I'm doing just by instinct, even though, like I said, I didn't get very many instructions on how to do this. So I'm just mixing it. In fact, I'm going to use my fingers a little bit here, and you can see that, like when you're making a biscuit, we're starting to get those pea-sized bits. It's starting to break up. And I'm thinking, my instinct tells me that this will make it light and fluffy, and maybe put like air pockets in the dough. And they are called potato biscuits, but I'm telling you, they feel more like rolls. They feel like really soft, delicious rolls. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. I'm going to then shake my hand off, add this warm liquid. Remember, the warm liquid is going to help activate the yeast. Woo! Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. It's becoming a dough. Let's get it started in here. Woo! I'm so happy it's becoming. I'm going to stop this and show you what it's looking like because you can't really see it. It's becoming a dough. It's starting to collect on the dough hook. And let's see what we're going to do here. We got to add eggs too. So this would be a good time to add the eggs. There's some dry ingredients on the bottom of the bowl that the eggs will actually help to incorporate. Now remember, like I told you last time, you don't want any partially developed fetuses in your baked goods. So you want to make sure you crack it into something else, make sure it's all good, then put it in. I'm going to go ahead and do like one egg at a time. Looking scrumptious. Show you this now. It's getting really wet and sticky, which is what we want. That's what the instructions on the recipe that I got said would be happening, and so we're okay with that. If you can see it, it's getting a little slimy. Okay. So at this point, this is probably when you can add that last cup of flour that we didn't have before. Spoon here. I really want to put egg in my bag of flour. I almost put flour in my Prosecco. Put it in, put it in. Yeah! Let's see how we're doing. Beautiful. Turn it on medium speed, put the flour in. And my recommendation is let this knead for 5 to 10 minutes. 5 minutes is probably good enough, but the reason why you knead the dough when you have a yeast dough like this is you want the strands of the yeast to become longer, and you also want to help to activate the gluten in the flour. And that is what is going to give you a fluffy, light, airy dough instead of like a dense ball. So here we go. Okay, so this dough has been kneading for about 5 minutes. The next thing I'm going to do is take some flour and flour my surface. Make sure it's clean first. I made sure mine was clean already. Just get the flour out on the surface. And we're going to take a little flour on our hands because people, this is a very sticky dough. So you're going to end up using more flour, and that's totally fine. Okay, got our dough hook out. You're going to find that your dough is probably going to stick to the sides of the bowl, so just scrape your bowl, get the dough all collected. Normally when you're making a bread dough, the dough will just all ball up around the dough hook, but because this is so sticky, some of it's not going to. Alright, so I've gotten it off the bottom of my bowl, get some more flour on my hand so I can pick it up. Oh wow, that feels really soft. I can already tell that these are going to be so delicious and so soft. So I'm just going to do a little final kneading and get it into a ball. And the way I do this is I fold it over, smash it down, fold it over, smash it down, fold it over, smash it down. Once it's become a ball, a nice ball, then we're good to go. You can feel the dough becoming more elastic the more you work it. Work it. Oh, I'm bleeding. These things that happen. One thing that I learned, which is kind of neat, is if you really want it to be a ball, you pinch the bottom. You just like bring it all up, pinch the bottom, and go like that, and you've got more of a ball shape. So now I'm gonna walk away from the camera for a minute and get this bowl cleaned out, because I'm gonna oil this bowl, put the dough back in the bowl, and let it sit for about an hour. Now that I've washed my bowl, I'm going to cover the bottom of the bowl with olive oil. You could use any oil that you want. I just like olive oil because I think it tastes really yummy and it's very good for you. So I'm just going to cover. And the reason why I do this is because we're going to let the dough sit for about an hour and rise. And the last thing we want is for our dough to become dry. We do not want a dry crust on our dough. So I actually have a brush right here. I'm going to brush the oil all over the top of the dough. And the oil's not going to be a problem. It's not going to cause any problems for our dough. Okay. So now you just want to cover this with saran wrap, or you can even use a towel. I'm going to use a towel. And put it in a very dry, warm place and just wait. So it's a little later now, it's been an hour or so, and our dough has risen in a warm, dry place. Now we're just going to measure out 2 ounces or pounds, can't remember what it is. We'll see what makes more sense when we get the scale out. We have one of these scales. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this out and see how much I can get out of here. So I pinch some off. Oh, it's sticky. Are you getting this? Dang, that is sticky. It's elastic is what it is. So I measured out. That's 2.5 pounds. It's interesting. It doesn't look like much. So that looks pretty good. I'm just gonna go like this, and I have a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. I'm gonna put it on there. For me, there's no exact science to this. Ah, yes. For my kids at school, this would be like a sensory overload. Woo, that's 3 pounds. We don't want that much. I've got all my balls of dough nicely rolled out and put on parchment paper. They are sitting on top of an oven that's preheated to 350 degrees, and I'm just going to let them sit there for about 30 minutes, and then we will bake them. Okay friends, this is the result of our journey that we went on together to make these potato rolls. It is so beautiful and golden brown, nice and round and delicious. This is still hot. That is really yummy. You are not going to regret taking the time to make this recipe. They're sweet, they're soft, they're chewy. They're definitely going to be a family pleaser at your next event. So please give this recipe a try, and like and subscribe to my videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.